Hi everyone, thanks for taking a moment to watch my video. Just want to start by saying if you're interested in learning how to use the new Battlefield Builder and the logic editor to create your own unique Battlefield experiences to share with your friends or your community, take a moment to subscribe to my channel and make sure you get notified when each of my upcoming tutorial videos become available. As a programmer and a teacher, I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to provide you with a comprehensive set of guides and tutorial videos to give you all the skills you need to create some amazing experiences. Keep watching for a glimpse at the logic editor and for more information. Now, if you watched the trailer, we did see a little glimpse of the editor in that trailer, and it's given us a look at what the logic editor might look like. And the recent image posted on Reddit has given us a little bit more insight into what the editor is going to contain, some of the commands, and how it's going to be able to structure logic when you use that editor. So, the first thing to note about the logic editor, or the way that we're going to structure the logic for the Battlefield experience, is that this is not a programming language. So if you've struggled to learn programming in the past, that's not necessarily going to hinder you here. I've seen this block building approach, this logic editor, compared to things like Scratch. Because Scratch, if you've ever used it to write computer programs, these are also block-based interfaces, and there are also other block-based interfaces that allow you to build code in Python, for example, without actually being able to, or actually having to write any code. The difference here is that the logic editor is really more of a rule creator rather than a fully fledged programming language. To be honest, I think DICE are being really quite clever here. Using this block building technique, it allows people to pick up the necessary commands and the structure of the code pretty quickly. And if you've ever used Scratch to write computer programs or your own little programs when you were younger, or even now if you still do it, the way that this logic editor will work will be very familiar. You build together your blocks of code like jigsaw pieces, they fit together. You can make slight edits to it. Another advantage of using this block-based approach is that you really only need to learn what the commands mean or do. And remembering keywords, instructions and those kind of things off by heart, as you might need to do if you were learning a text-based language, isn't really necessary. So this is going to make picking up the editor and using it effectively a much easier process. We haven't seen behind the scenes, so it is possible that there may well be a text-based or a console-based approach to it, but that doesn't make sense, to be honest. It does make more sense that the logic editor will be this block-based approach. It certainly fits into the web-based application idea, and it's going to make it much easier for them to structure the editor in the way that they want to and make it more accessible. Interestingly, as you can see, the editor itself does have some terms that programmers, even beginners, will be familiar with. You can see that the code includes the use of variables. Some of these variables seem to be built in and used in the code already, but possibly it might include the ability for us to create and track our own variables. That we need to wait for the full release of the logic editor to be able to see that. We can also see that we've got the use of subroutines. This should allow rules and actions, the way that this seems to be grouped, grouped together, reused without having to duplicate them over and over again. And interestingly, if anybody's done any programming, even at a basic level, you can also see that we've got access to something called arrays of data in the game as well. And that's going to be interesting to see what we can use those for, or what they are used for in the logic editor. From what we've seen so far of the logic editor, we can see that it's going to allow us to create mods. Mods seem to be collections or sets of rules that you can create, with each one of those rules being triggered or run by an in-game event. That means something's going to happen in the game, and we can use that something to start one of our blocks of code or trigger a check of one of our rules. Examples of in-game events could be things like the game started, that's an obvious one. Maybe somebody is shot and takes damage. Maybe a flag's being captured or contested, and so on. So these in-game events that happen will trigger a check of one of our rules. Each rule that we write will have a condition that will need to be met in order to trigger the actions that are in it, and a set of actions that will take place if the event is triggered and the conditions met. So just to quickly recap, the logic editor looks like it will consist of mods. A mod will contain a set of rules. The rules we will define. They will have an event that triggers that rule. If the event is triggered, conditions can then be checked to see whether we need to run the actions, and if the conditions are met, the actions will run and changes will be made to the game. So if an event is triggered and a rule runs, the conditions met, and some actions take place, the logic editor clearly then has the ability to change or affect gameplay in some way. Now it isn't clear what events are going to be available to trigger actions. We need to see the full logic editor to be able to see that, and the same for conditions, what conditions we're going to be able to check, or even how these will be able to turn into actions in the game. It might be possible to write code to trigger actions, for example, based on simple or complex game events, to combine game events, so if a few things happen but we can't be entirely sure what is going to be available to us in the logic editor at launch. We have got this screenshot, however, that was being shown on Reddit to give us a little bit of example of how these things might be able to be combined. So in this screenshot we can see the structure of the logic editor that we were just talking about. So this looks like a group of rules that have been placed together under a mod. You can see 3 rules in the screenshot. You can see that the rule at the top of the screen has been called GunMaster, and the fact that that text box looks grey, looks like we can type in the name of the rules ourselves. So whoever has created this rule has called it GunMaster, and you can see that there is the rule and the event that will trigger it. And you can see that there is no condition set for this GunMaster rule, so there's no condition set to be able to run the actions. And that sort of makes sense if we just think about it. This looks like it's the initial actions to set up the game at the start of a game of GunMaster. So you can see it's setting each team's team level, what the winning condition might be, the target score, so what each, in order to win the game, what the score needs to be. We can see what might be potentially a couple of errors actually in this block of code, because you can see at the top under actions it says set variable team 1 level, but it says that twice and it sets the team level to 0. And potentially that's probably a mistake, because it probably wants to say set team level, team 1 level and set team 2 level, but we can't be sure. It does look like it's a mistake. And if you look at this mod a little bit further down, you can see an additional 2 rules have been set. These 2 seem to have the same name, so this looks like it's possible that somebody's just duplicated the one from above and placed it underneath, which would make it easier if you want to create the same rule with a few different options underneath. You can see it says team 1 set player weapon, team 1 set player weapon, and I suspect that should probably say team 1 and team 2. And you can see again these rules are triggered by an event on player enter match, so I suspect this rule runs clearly when the player enters the match, and it obviously assigns them the first weapon in the gun array, or gives them the first weapon in the game. So these sets of rules here obviously set all of the starting conditions for a game of GunMaster, and you can see that structure that we were talking about, that rule, the conditions that need to be met in order to run it, and then the actions that take place as a consequence of that rule having been run. Now clearly when we get more information about the editor, I'll be able to cover the options that are available in a lot more depth. But if you use your imagination a little bit, we might be able to see how this combination of rules based on events could be used to create some really, really cool in-game actions. So we want to think about this in terms of the way that games work currently. A practical example of how this sort of system already works. Think about a game like Domination, a game mode like Domination, and the ticket bleed, how that works in those sorts of game modes. So the ticket bleed for a team increases as the opposing team catches more flags. So if one team has 2 flags and one team has 1, the ticket bleed will be a certain amount of time for the opposing team automatically. However, if the opposing team catches 3 flags and the other team has no flags, obviously the ticket bleed increases significantly, and you can win a game of Domination very quickly if you capture all the flags and hold them over a period of time. So if you think about this in terms of the rules for the logic editor and the event, so the event might be that a team captures a flag. When a team catches the flag, we need to check a condition. The condition that we might check will be the number of flags that the current team has captured. So the team that's just captured the flag, we need to check the condition, which will be the number of flags that that team has currently captured. The result, or the actions that would take place, would be that the value or modifier that affects the number of tickets the opposing team loses, or the amount of time it takes for a ticket to be lost, might increase. So we've got that event, team catches a flag, condition, number of flags that are being captured, and action, alter the variable or the modifier that increases the number of tickets the opposing team loses, or the amount of time it takes for the team to lose a ticket. It's going to be really interesting to see the tools or the controls that the logic editor is going to provide us with, and it's possible that the tool, the logic editor, will give this sort of control for over hundreds if not thousands of different things in the game. And if you think about the possibilities of being able to really fine-tune those rules in your game using the logic editor, this could be a really, really powerful tool going forward to create some really, really unique game experiences. We saw in the trailer video a game of VIP, so you can imagine a game of VIP, for example, and an in-game event is triggered by the VIP getting shot. The VIP gets shot, it's an in-game event, and that triggers a check of conditions in the game. The condition might check what the VIP's health is, and if the VIP's health has dropped below 50%, maybe all of the players that are defending the VIP get a 100% boost to their sprints, so it makes them run faster. Now we don't know whether those are the sorts of modifiers that will be in the game, but we can see how we can really play around with what might happen in the game to be able to modify it in really unique ways. Now, until we see the list of events that can be used to trigger actions, because these will definitely be provided by dice. It might be possible to combine events, but it looks like it's going to be one event to trigger a rule. The in-game variables that we can alter, what those might be, whether we can create our own or what dice are going to provide us with. What the game modifiers are, what we can alter in the game and how we can alter those. And what access we have to the different conditions that we can check. Not to mention whether it's possible to create our own, how these can be combined together. It's going to be difficult to work out how everything's going to fit together and what we're going to be able to change. However, if we just think about this basic logic, it could well be the most revolutionary thing that has happened to first-person shooters, and Battlefield could turn out to be just this amazing creative sandbox for years to come. How we play and create games in the future of Battlefield could be really, really radically altered by this logic editor, and it could lead to some really, really interesting gameplay. And if we think about this being going a little bit crazy, what if you could modify gravity? so that somebody stands in a particular location or flicks a switch and triggers an event. It gives everyone super heavy boosts so they can't run very fast anymore, or it reduces the effect of gravity so that everyone can jump superhumanly high. Obviously I don't know whether that's one of the options that will be in there, but that's the kind of thing that could possibly happen, and I think that things are going to get really very interesting indeed. And I'm really looking forward to creating these tutorials and this range of guides that's going to help you understand and build your own unique experiences in a way that hopefully is going to be accessible to everyone. Anyway, that's all for me in this really quick intro video. I hope you've enjoyed this little brief look at the Battlefield logic editor that I've tried to put together. I don't have any inside access or anything like that. I'm just an old bloke that likes playing Battlefield, and this has got me really excited, and it really plays into the sort of thing that I'm interested in, my hobby aside from gaming and my job, and it's something that I'm really excited about. So I'm really looking forward to putting together my tutorials, my guides on how to use the editor itself, and I'm hoping that together with my community and with communities at large, that we're going to be able to put together some really weird and wonderful game mods that we can share with the community. If you want to keep up to date, just a reminder, be certain you don't miss out on any information on the Battlefield Builder or the logic editor when it's released, as well as my tutorials and guides. Then make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future updates from me. And in the meantime, thanks for listening. This is a really exciting time to be a Battlefield player. I see lots of players coming back to Battlefield from other games that we've been playing, and this is going to be a really exciting few months ahead as we find out more about what is coming and what we're going to be able to do. Until next time, see you all on the battlefield.